Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. And good evening, everyone. Thank you for being here this evening. And welcome to our 14th episode of More Than Just Money series, a series for anything that is Islamic finance related. Let me firstly introduce myself. My name is Azmi, and I'll be your host for tonight. Islamic Finance at Singapore, or IF at SG, is a community of scholars, finance professionals, students in Islamic finance. What started as a WhatsApp group has now become a society in the making with a long-term goal to serve the Singaporean community through Islamic finance. The topic for today's More Than Just Money series is equity and peer-to-peer crowdfunding, where we ask ourselves, are these where you can find returns that beat your bank savings? We have also prepared a Slido link, which you can ask your questions related to today's topic of discussion, and the link can be found in the chat section below. Tonight, I am pleased to share this platform with none other than one of the leaders, if not the leader in the P2P Islamic crowdfunding platform. Brother Umar is a co-founder of Ethis Global, an emerging group of impact investment and ethical crowdfunding platforms regulated in multiple jurisdictions based on Islamic finance principles. Ethis.co started out in Singapore and is now present in Malaysia, Indonesia, and Dubai, where it serves retail, high net worth, and institutional investors and donors to match them to sustainable and impactful projects, campaigns, and companies. Brother Umar is also the chairman of Islamic Fintech Alliance Founders Group and was recently appointed chairman of the iConnect Islamic Fintech program. He also advises other Islamic finance players, including IF at SG, IBF Digilabs, Global Sedekah, and Adil Advisory. Happy to have you with us today, Brother Umar. Without further ado, we should just begin with the first question. So, sorry, let me just get the question out. Okay, to start off, could you share with us how you came across the crowdfunding concept? And to those who are new to crowdfunding, what is crowdfunding exactly?
Sure. So, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh to everybody. Thank you, IF at SG, for organizing the event. Good to see you again, Asmi, alhamdulillah. I'll just share a bit about the initial journey. So just before Ethis, I had a company with a few friends called Amanah Asset Management. So what we were doing was we were trying to bring in Islamic finance products from overseas into Singapore, and also doing events, educational talks, and so on. But in the end, we did not actually succeed to bring any product into Singapore. Singapore is considered a small market and so on by some of them. So the demand was there. We saw there was a demand. This was back in 2013, 2012. We saw there was a lot of interest, and today there's even more interest, alhamdulillah. And so we realized that there's a need to maybe create a product since there were no products available. And we were already doing some business matching and some project financing back in Amanah Asset days. So then crowdfunding was something that I accidentally came across. The very first Islamic crowdfunding platform was actually out of Egypt, and it was very interesting. So I spent quite some time talking to them to come to Singapore, but it never materialized. And so eventually we started Ethis. The first iteration of Ethis in 2014, late 2014, was called Club Ethis. It was structured or organized as a private investment club. People have to sign up and become a member, and then you could invest in companies and projects together. So that's how it started, quite some time back. So in startup years, we're quite old, right? But alhamdulillah, it's been quite a journey for us. Sometimes when you're one of the first few in that space, it's you have to educate people everywhere at all levels, and there were no regulations at that time as well. Today, a lot of things have changed. Yeah? So maybe I'll jump to your other question about what is crowdfunding, is it?
Yeah, what exactly is crowdfunding?
All right. The term is very broad. Essentially, it's people coming together to provide funds for a specific defined purpose, a project or a company or a charity or a movement or an idea. It can be for anything, right? So a crowdfunding platform matches those who want to provide funds and those who are seeking funds, right? Now, so there's the broad general principle or general model. And it's actually very interesting, because with that model, you can implement it in many different ways. You can do investment, you can do charity or social finance, and anything in between. Right? There's so many examples. You can invest in property, you can invest in equity of companies, for example, startups. You can invest in short-term projects, long-term projects, whatever kind of permutation of business or investment opportunity, all social or community costs can potentially be funded through crowdfunding, for as long as there's a group of people interested and able to put in some money to support it, right? Whether they want to get returns or whether they just want to support it, or whether it's a religious motive, then that can exist on a crowdfunding platform. So with that said, there are many crowdfunding platforms. Islamic crowdfunding platforms, probably only in the past year, there have been quite a number of new ones in various parts of the world. I think Indonesia probably has the most. If I'm not wrong, there are 8 licensed crowdfunding, investment crowdfunding, P2P platforms in Indonesia. And equity crowdfunding, I think there's 1 or 2 coming up with the license. Yeah? So maybe I can go on and on. You want me to talk for 1 hour, or you want to ask a question?
I can ask the next question.
Maybe I'll add a bit more.
Okay.
Right. So for Islamic crowdfunding, specifically for Singapore, you can choose to invest in a platform based in another country, right? Within Singapore, the more popular or common ones are, Ethis itself. There's also Capital Boost, and IFSG is in partnership with both of them, right? And in other parts of the world, in the UK, even in the US, in parts of the Middle East, there are also Islamic crowdfunding platforms. Yeah. Okay, pause there.
Okay. I think that's a great holistic explanation of how crowdfunding works, and also a brief overview of how you started this journey in the crowdfunding. And you also mentioned how you started in Singapore, and now your office is based in Malaysia, and you have a lot of activities happening in Malaysia and Indonesia. So is there any concern about having, or is there any challenges that you faced when you were operating in Singapore, and why isn't Ethis establishing a headquarters over in Singapore? Is there not enough demands, or is there a regulatory things that you have to solve in Singapore before you can actually set yourself up over here?
Yeah, I think when we started for the first few years, there were no specific regulations for crowdfunding in Singapore. I can't remember which year. I think 2017 maybe, or 16. Then the MAS did open up for application, but you're applying for financial service license or capital market license to operate in Singapore. So for us, why Malaysia? It was a bit of a coincidence. So Malaysia was actually the first country in Southeast Asia to regulate investment crowdfunding. And before that, we started in Singapore already. And we were also approached by the regulators here. The regulators are a very big entity. There are many departments. I think it's on the research department. They wanted to know about Islamic crowdfunding, and there weren't many players or any players in the region except us at the time. So we got to know that there's no license coming out and everything. So we felt that license is very critical. And that until today, that remains true. That is even more true. You do require licenses before you can operate, right? So in Malaysia, that was the reason, actually. That was the main reason at that time. And also, of course, comparing Malaysia and Singapore, both countries have plus and minuses. For a startup in Singapore, there's a lot of support. It's really a thriving startup, hub, technology hub. But at the same time, cost is also high. Cost of living is high. Cost of hiring is high. And competition is also very, very intense, right? So for something in its infancy like Islamic crowdfunding, it's quite challenging maybe to do many things, including getting the right talent. Right? If we are not able to pay sufficiently, then there are a lot of well-funded startups that can pay better, So those are some of the considerations. Now, on the pull side, for Malaysia, it's the Islamic Finance Hub, the Islamic Economy Hub. It's almost every year it's ranked number 1. So there comes a lot of interest, a lot of stakeholder support, a lot of infrastructure, a lot of awareness already in the market, right? And for us, we always see ourselves as a global company. So while I'm thankful for Malaysia so far for all the support that they've given us, building our team here. Half our team is here. 1/3 our team is in KL, 1/3 our team is in Jakarta, and another third is spread around 8 countries, different parts of the world.
Wow.
Right? So it's quite global. We've always seen ourselves as a global company. It's just that Malaysia became a more suitable base. Right now, Malaysia is the HQ, but in our current business, Indonesia is our main market with the most activity because we've been there for a number of years.
I see, I see. That's a good explanation of why you guys are centrally based in Indonesia and Malaysia. And it's also good to hear that you guys have teams all across the world, all across the globe. So maybe I can take a step back and go back to our topic of today, which is equity and crowdfunding. So for the benefit of some of our audience here, could you explain like the difference between equity or crowdfunding? Do they actually represent the same thing, or what are they, equity versus crowdfunding?
Sure. So crowdfunding, I guess, is a more generic umbrella term that cover quite a few quite different activities, as long as there's money being matched from people to projects or companies or causes, right? A specific campaign, a discretionary investment is different from when you park your money in some financial product or instrument or in a fund or in a unit trust. That's different, right? You're putting your money there or in some kind of investment account. And if it's either sometimes you have, you're trading something, or it's being managed by a financial institution. Here, we are taking a real world company or real world project and bringing it to you. And you decide whether you want to invest in that company or project. So investment crowdfunding, the first principle that I want to highlight is that it's a direct investment. Your money goes into a company or a project. It doesn't go into a fund pooled with other money, pooled with for other projects, for other needs, or managed by anyone, right? Or managed by someone. Here it's not managed. It's your money going to a company or a project, right? So for equity crowdfunding, that's one type, and P2P or lending-based or financing-based crowdfunding is the other common investment crowdfunding type. Okay, there are two types. There are many variations, but let's just consider this as the two more common types. Yeah? And in Malaysia, you have different licenses for both, right? In Indonesia, you have also different licenses for both, P2P lending, and the other one is called securities crowdfunding, not equity crowdfunding, a slightly wider scope. Yeah. So let me just explain quickly one by one. For equity crowdfunding, normally if you want to invest in a startup or a company, it's quite tough unless you have a lot of money and you have friends who are good founders, right? Then they'll approach you because they know you have money. But other than that, it's quite tough to invest in the VC game or the angel investment game. You just do your research. The outsized returns from funds and investment funds has been VCs in the past decade or so, right? Past 5-7 years. 30% returns, 40% returns, even more. It's sometimes achievable by VCs. How can a normal person put in a small amount in this kind of deals, right? So that's where equity crowdfunding comes in, right? We are complementary and in a sense competing with angel groups and investment companies, venture capital, if the focus of the platform is on the startups. But it could be on other SMEs, other businesses. It can be, for example, franchises. You want to own a franchise of, let's say a popular food brand, right? Secret Recipe in Malaysia or in Singapore, there's, what's the famous burger? Okay, never mind. Point is, you want to get up the franchise, you need 100K, 200K, 500K. But with the crowd, 20 people, 50 people come together and you spread out the cost and you own a franchise, right? So equity crowdfunding is interesting. It allows normal people to invest in owning shares of private companies. Very interestingly, a lot of money actually comes from VCs as well today. VCs work with crowdfunding platforms because we have a lot of reach and deal flow, right? And we help them to deploy their funds into our deals. Yeah. So you can invest alongside VCs. That's how equity crowdfunding works. For P2P, it's different. It is a term financing or a form of lending, technically, right? So what we do in Indonesia is P2P. And what we mainly do and what's probably most common is called supply chain finance. Basically, you help companies to buy and sell things, or they have a good contract, they have good business, they don't have enough cash. You provide the cash, they do the contract, they do the business, they do the delivery, they do the construction, whatever it may be. And then you share the profits, right? Or you buy and sell to them. There are many, many ways to do it, right? So for us, initially we did real estate crowdfunding in Indonesia. And that was quite good. We did social housing development in Indonesia. But with the COVID, the market has changed, right? So property development is quite challenging now. And so in the middle of last year, we pivoted to focus more on short-term SME financing, which became very popular, which has been very popular with our investors because it's shorter term. Like in today's world, people tend to think shorter term sometimes. they want their returns back fast, right? So there are different appeals, right? If you want to own a slice of an exciting company, go to equity crowdfunding. If you want to just put in your money in a project that you are comfortable with, then you can get the returns within a certain period of time. But you need to know the risk as well. Yeah.
Okay, that's a good explanation of the different types of crowdfunding. I think you went really into detail about the equity crowdfunding itself. Maybe I can go into Ethis as a company. So Ethis is a combination of ethical and Islamic. So can you share with us how these principles, ethical and Islamic, is being embedded into the campaigns that you have in your crowdfundings?
Sure. I think maybe I'll take a step back and try and share a bit about how we strive to accomplish the objectives of Islamic finance or the Sharia, and then I'll zoom into the platforms or the campaigns and the deals. Yeah. So what we are striving to do is we believe that Islamic finance is a solution for everybody, Muslims, non-Muslims, for humanity, and that as Muslims we also in a sense have to believe that is the case, because there's divine wisdom in there, right? Cannot go wrong. It's just the implementation, the application, the context, all these things need to be considered, and the existing financial system that we are working within. Although there are alternative financial universes setting up right now in the metaverse and other places, but in day to day for most people, right, we're in the same financial system that's been around for the past few decades. So we have to work within that, right? For Islamic finance, what we believe is that it's a much more balanced, much more fair system, much more participatory system. However, the way Islamic finance has been brought into the modern financial system is very, very heavy with banking, right? Banking is the significant portion of Islamic finance globally. And although today there's a lot of movement towards being more participatory and impactful, still a majority of the banks, because of the way banks are set up and the way they're regulated, work quite similarly with as conventional banks in terms of some of the features and all that. Of course, the contracts are all Sharia compliant, it's all proper and halal, but the way it's done is quite similar, I guess, or quite mimicking maybe the conventional banking. So the full impact of Islamic finance is not felt, right? A lot of the time. So what we feel is that crowdfunding is an opportunity to implement Islamic finance in its compliant form, and beyond being halal, also tayyib, right? Also having the additional element of doing good, the embedded good that is created because of the way the structures are done, because of the way the relationships are created in Islamic investing, right? So that's a bit macro, right? And it's really quite beautiful. I'm not an expert, I'm not a Sharia scholar. I try to surround myself with people who are experts, right? Because I don't have this kind of expertise, but what I read and what I see and what I experience shows that there's really a lot of benefit in Islamic finance. Yeah. Now, the second thing that we try to do is also to sort of blend. We have not reached there yet. We're still some way from here. But what we want to do at some point, inshallah, is to blend social finance, zakat, sedekah, wakaf, and commercial finance. Right? And commercial finance here is not cool profit only commercial finance. It's commercial finance that's at minimum responsible and sustainable, and preferably bringing some benefit, additional good to society, right? So we want to blend those two or synergize those two. And if we can do that successfully, it's going to be very powerful, inshallah. Right now we have the charity platform, Global Sedekah. We have the two investment platforms. We do try to sort of cross-sell here and there, but it's not yet blended because it's still not yet that so big. Yeah, so inshallah, as we gain momentum, more capital, we can do and more reach in the market, we can start to also blend more social finance and commercial finance. Yeah, I'm not going to your other question. You want to repeat? I forgot.
The other question, actually, the question is just that how is the ethical and Islamic is applied to your crowdfunding campaigns? Maybe I think you went too big to the outside. But yeah, maybe you can scoop it down to that.
Yeah, okay. So in terms of the deals, right? In Malaysia, we can fund Malaysian companies, right? Because that's our license. You can fund Malaysian companies. So of course, all companies here have to be Sharia compliant when they come to our platform. We have a screening process. We have Sharia, internal Sharia advisor, external Sharia advisor, and so on. So the companies need to be Sharia compliant in terms of the nature of business, and also in terms of their financials. We have to look at some ratio, see whether they have, a certain threshold of haram income, and so on. Yeah. Of course, we also try to support the halal economy, right? Something that has a more Islamic focus will attract our attention, definitely. Something that has strong social impact, especially in the COVID situation now, for example, food security and so on. These are things that we are keen on supporting, social enterprises, and our crowd likes this kind of companies as well. So that's how we do it. It's a musyarakah, it's a joint venture, you get equity in the company. I think it's quite straightforward. Sometimes you get dividends as well, but they're not guaranteed or promised. Right? The way we do it is based on profits. If there are profits, then there are certain rights for investors, so you get some of the profits. Yeah. In Indonesia, it's financing. So for, let's say, a company that is providing medical equipment to a large factory, right? Medical gear for COVID, like, face masks and whatnot, right? So that company got good order from a very big factory, a big company or government company. So they know that the PA is good, right? Then they come to us. What we do is a limited scope musyarakah or joint venture, limited scope, limited time, not with the company itself, but for that contract or for that project, right? So it's a 6-month project or 3-month project even. They need to buy the supplies, they need to do maybe some adjustments, some testing, QC, and then they send it over and they get paid. So it's a 3-month thing. Okay? End of 3 months, let's say the profit split is 20-80. Right? So investors get 20% of the profits, they get 80% of the profits. Yeah. So typically it works out to, let's say, 3-month project is maybe 4, 5 point something percent sometimes, depending on the project itself. But you have to take any risk that comes with it. For example, delay risk, non-delivery risk, and so on. So you got to read and understand a bit. Yeah.
I got to thank you for going a bit macro just now, because it really, I think for me, it helps me reflect on that Ethis is actually very firmly rooted in your drive, like you really believe in the Islamic finance as a divine wisdom, and you know that it will work. So I think that is how makes Ethis so so driven in giving out solutions to the equity crowdfunding platforms. And I also would agree with you to say that all these campaigns fully unleash the impact or like the potential of Islamic finance compared to what we term as the Islamic finance and banking, which is quite closely mimic the conventional banking per se. Because I think in all your crowdfunding campaigns, we can see the social impact and not just bland returns and profits, but we can also see how it's impacting the campaigns. And I think with that, we can go into like some of your campaigns, and I would just like to ask, so I'm looking at the PT Petro Energi Solusi and also the Drumstairs Korean Halal Restaurants. So the returns is about 5.25% and 30.4% respectively. This looks relatively high returns compared to our regular investments that we usually see in the markets today. So could you explain to us like how are you able to give us these kind of returns? Sorry, brother Umar, you are still muted.
That comes with age.
Astaghfirullah.
Yeah, so you can see the screen. I'm showing my screen, so you know what we're talking about, right? So here, this company essentially is selling, is a trader, right, of petrol for micro entrepreneurs and rural areas, basically, right? Because in Indonesia, it's many thousands of islands, so this kind of service is very, very critical. People need power, right? And the rest are all different things. Yeah. So for the returns, as you mentioned, as you pointed out, it is high, definitely. I mean, compared to what you get when you put your money in your bank, right? But it's commensurate to the risk as well. Because if you put your money in your bank, then the risk is your money is losing value, basically, but there's no risk of losing your money, right? And in today's world, I mean, there are a lot of different data out there, but point is, there's a lot of money flooding the market today, quantitative easing from the US and many central banks. So the more money that's pumped out by the central banks, the lower the value of your money, of our money, right? So it is even more critical today for everybody, especially if you have excess cash, to figure out or to think about where you can place it to get some returns, right? To counter the effect of inflation. Now here, 5.25% in 3 months, annualized, I guess it's about 16-18%. This is high, definitely, but the risk, I would say that if you click on it, you'll see all the risks stated there. But there's typically two key risks. One is currency risk, because you're investing in rupiah, right? If in these 3 months, if let's say, Nauzubillah, you're investing in Sing dollars because you're from Singapore, and most of our investors come from Singapore, I think about 40% of our investors are from Singapore right now. So you invest in Sing dollar, then in 3 months' time, let's say, Sing dollar becomes very strong. So even though your rupiah investment has gone up, but if you were to bring it back, it will be less because the Sing dollar is strong, it suddenly becomes strong, right? But it goes the other way also. If the rupiah becomes stronger, and you take back the money, then you'll get more Sing dollar, right? So most people actually come in with a view of recycling the funds, and the concept is you compound your returns over time. Yeah. But point is, it's high because of the risk. The first risk is the FX risk, the currency risk, and the second risk is a delay risk. Right? Typically, delays do happen, and there's a buffer given by the regulators in Indonesia of 3 months. Right? If something were to go beyond 3 months, that is considered a default, or you have to take remedial action. But if not, you have to push, or we as a platform have to work closely and communicate with the project owners to get updates for investors. So basically, our role is, once we get the information, we curate it, we put it online, you have the information you need to decide for yourself, and then we facilitate the transaction, the contract, the shariah, and the communication. And so that's our role as a platform. It's not my project, right? These are all not my projects. We don't hold on to your money goes to them, right? So the first risk is to recap, the FX risk, and the second risk is the delay risk. So there have been projects that finish early. For example, there's one that's supposed to be 6 months. We put a lot of buffer, we were worried about the COVID, we talked to them about this possibility, that possibility, so they said, okay, fine, let's put this long timeline, and it got cleared in 2 months. So you get the same returns, right? A 6 months project, if it's 8%, now you get 8% in 2 months, right? So you take the risk, but you also get any upside that there may be. Yeah.
Okay, I can really see the sharing economy here, whereby both the investor and the campaign or the project company itself are sharing the risk. And I think this is one of the elements of Islamic finance itself. And also, I would like to go into, I think we talked about this previously, about your property crowdfunding. You mentioned how during the COVID period, it's very hard to build the properties. And is it just because of COVID, or will there be a continuation of property crowdfunding here after this COVID phase phased out?
Sure. So I think it's a bit detailed if you want to understand the reasons, but it's a matter of timing, because the main challenge actually is mortgages. Of course, during the COVID, less people go for viewing, less agents are active, and developers also, sometimes if the area has a hot zone in Indonesia, they go by zones. The whole country is generally quite open, but if there's a breakout here, then they will put a hotspot there as a red zone, right? So if your development is there, then people cannot work, right? So definitely, there was a period of time government offices were closed and all that. So these things, affect the timeline, right? And the main challenge is also the mortgages or the financing from the Islamic banks and the conventional banks is lower now because of the COVID. So for us, when the COVID started, we did have a number of projects that were not yet completed, right? Before that, there were some that completed before COVID and paid up before COVID, but there were those that were ongoing from before COVID. Some were delayed before COVID, and with the COVID became more delayed, right? And there are those that are not delayed, doing very well or even faster, and then COVID came and they also got delayed, right? So what we did, and I think the whole industry is affected in the same way, we have to see how best to work with them, because these are business people who want their project to work. They're not on purpose not doing their job, right? So then we restructure, we discuss, because we have a number of developers and projects, right? So we also have a bird's eye view of what's happening in the market. For our ground team in Indonesia, we have a number of our team is about 40 people there. So alhamdulillah, in the past 6 months, there's been a few payouts coming out, and most of the projects are moving, most of them on a new timeline. Yeah? So investors have to understand that this is something that's unavoidable. But there's the beauty of property or real estate, where you have an asset. If it's an SME and the SME goes bust, then you lose your money, But if it's a property project, worst case, it can drag on for very long, right? Because there's no money or whatever, but you still have the land. But in this market, who's going to buy your land, right? So as long as you're able to hold on and wait for the point where the land can start moving again, then the risk is of losing your money is quite low, right? So that's property development. Moving forward, property development will go back up, property sales will go back up. People need houses, people need to transact, right? All these developers with pent up supply because it's stuck due to COVID are going to start pushing it out, slashing prices and so on. So it will eventually recover, and we need to be in touch with the market to come in when the market recovers. Now we're looking at some tourism assets because local tourism is expected to boom, that kind of thing. Yeah, so real estate is something that doesn't die in that sense. So inshallah, we do hope to come back to it at some point.
Okay, that's good to hear that the property crowdfunding campaigns will be back soon, maybe after COVID also. And maybe we can just scope out a bit on the landscape of the fintech landscape in Indonesia. You mentioned about how there has been some newcomers fintech offering similar product as yours, which is like equity crowdfunding or even the P2P lending. Could you share with us how Ethis has been has been winning awards for its crowdfunding in the past years. How is Ethis preparing itself in the years ahead? How is what's Ethis strategy? Trying to be one of the leading platform in the entire market today.
Sure. I think in the business journey, it's not always important to be the number one in that sense. But at the same time, we were one of the pioneers. Now in Indonesia, to be frank, a few platforms leapfrogged us. They became bigger than us, faster than us. Local Islamic platforms. I mean, conventional platforms, there are a number of very, very big ones. And the local Islamic platforms, there are a few that became bigger than us. The main difference between us and them, I think two things in terms of our business journey. One is we took a very long time to get regulated because we came with a history. So there's a lot of, on the corporate side, a lot of things to do. On the track record, on the compliance, on our history and all that, the regulators have a lot to look at. Whereas most of the other players, and a number of them, they're all our friends, right? We are together in associations and so on. And a number of them started because they were inspired by us, and then they became bigger than us. So they got alhamdulillah, we're happy for them. We're all working together. So yeah, they got licensed earlier. And in Indonesia, there are 3 steps now to get the full license. We just got it after 3.5 years of working on the different steps. We just got it last month, alhamdulillah, right? So it's really a long journey. So only now that we can really scale up. So I think in terms of leadership, what we have accomplished and maybe why we've gotten awards and so on is because we are one of the few that does it at a global level, which is new behavior in the Muslim world, in Islamic finance, right? You don't see our recent investment project in Malaysia, a Malaysian company raised funds, right? So there was a quite big raise we did for 6 million plus ringgit, about 2 million plus dollars, for a grocery startup that's making good profits. Right? So we had investors from Middle East, from Europe, from Africa, most of them by name Muslim, based on the name, we identify them as Muslim. So this is really new behavior. They never come to Malaysia. They don't know any Malaysians. In the past, they wouldn't invest in Malaysia. Right? But now the people from around the world are investing in Malaysia and Indonesia through Ethis. So I think that's probably one of the key breakthroughs, I guess, or interesting things that we managed to accomplish. Yeah.
Oh, that's good to hear that we have, or you guys are getting investors from all over the world, Africa and all that. If I can divert a bit to another question. So we have, I think there are some keen observers of Ethis that would like to know if, because we have seen that you guys have a section in Dubai, or like a headquarter or like an office in Dubai, but there are no further updates on that. Is there any plans to have some property development or crowdfunding campaigns in Dubai, or is it still in the working?
Yeah, I think we have quite good relationship with Dubai. We are in the Dubai Expo. There's a big business event now. The Dubai government gave us a grant also about 3 years ago, $100,000 grant. Alhamdulillah, was very, very useful at that time in our earlier days. But the license itself, we have not gone to market yet. Sometimes getting the license and going to market, there are different challenges. So here, the license that we got, the approval that we got is for development, property development, crowdfunding, very, very specific and narrow. But there's still some issues that we're working out with the regulators until now to go to market. So what we've done is actually we've put it on hold, because sometimes it depends on whether regulators are able to provide what you want or what you need to run the business the way you want to do it. So in Dubai, basically now there is no under development construction crowdfunding, right? Under development real estate crowdfunding, there's none, right? And we got an approval, but later on it turned out to be not feasible to go to market yet until certain things change, and we're still waiting, we're still discussing, and we're still trying, right? But probably in the next 1-2 weeks, we will have an announcement. We have a new platform. I think this is probably the first time talking about it. We have a new platform coming up. This will be very interesting. It will give us a lot more flexibility. It's based in the Middle East. We're working on it the past few months, and I can't reveal more until it's announced. But inshallah, doakan it will be announced, and it will give a lot more access and opportunity to investors to invest in many different things, like in addition to what we currently have. Yeah.
Inshallah, it will be a beneficial platform for everyone, and thank you for doing that. I'm sorry to burst the news, make you release the news earlier. Actually, that is one of the last questions that we have for you today. If I may, I can switch on to the Slido, where we offer our audience here a platform for them to ask questions. So I'll share my screen now, and then we can select questions that is okay to be answered. Okay, so okay, maybe I will just go from the top, and then we'll see if the look.
I like the second question.
Okay, I think I think you are good at this. So okay, maybe you can start with that, and then you can show us about how and where you can navigate through your platform also.
Sure. I think I'm just joking. I'm just happy to get new people in our community joining us, right? But yeah, how you start investing is, I think first of all, and before I talk about the steps, is to get more educated. We have a lot of more awareness, more understanding. Yeah. So we have a lot of content on our blogs, on our social media, and so on. Of course, you can do your own research, your own reading. I've also contributed to various books on Islamic finance, Islamic Fintech, and crowdfunding. So do read up, get familiar, before you jump in. And once you're comfortable, then go to the platform and see. Of course, before that, sign up for our mailing list and get updates when there's new campaigns. Because we have new campaigns coming every month for the investment platforms. For Global Sedekah, we have many campaigns all the time, right? You have Zakat, Wakaf, Sedekah. So go to ethis.co, and it should be quite easy. We try our best to make the user experience and journey easy for you. So you just see what you like. If it suits your investment and risk appetite, then you just go through the simple steps, few steps, communicate with us by email, and it's done. Of course, we need to do certain things as part of the regulatory requirement, like do some KYC check or sort of background check to make sure that it's not money that is tainted and so on, right? So those are all standard stuff. Whenever you go anywhere, you have to do the same thing if it's a regulated platform. Yeah. So for Indonesia, we have 2 to 3, sometimes 4 new projects a month, and it gets funded quite quickly, sometimes in a day, sometimes in a week or 2. Sometimes in 3 weeks. In Malaysia, it's equity, so you're owning a slice of a company. So you need more information, you need more time maybe to think about it, because it's typically a longer term kind of investment. And we have 1 to 2 companies a month at this stage. We may have more as we go forward, inshallah. We want to have more, inshallah, as we go. Yeah.
Okay, inshallah, you guys will have more campaigns and more company approaching to raise some funds for their SMEs or projects. So I highlighted this one because I'm coming from a very technical person. I'm actually very curious if Ethis have anything or any projected projects about this decentralized system. Would you like to answer this question?
Well, for us, we do have a system under development, but right now it's not currently based on decentralized system or blockchain or DeFi. We do have smart contracts, but they are not smart contracts on the blockchain. They are smart contracts, e-signing contracts, and so on, automated contracts and everything. So we do have that, but not on I guess the decentralized system here referring to blockchain or DeFi, not yet. However, we do have a related entity that is quite deep in emerging technology like DeFi. It's called IBF DigiLabs. So the website is digilabs.sg. There's a company. We have an office in Singapore. We have a presence in Singapore as well as Ireland. So here they do a lot of R&D, and they build products together with the Ethis tech team. Yeah. So we have one right now that's in the works, which is based on blockchain, but it is we call it Islamic value analytics, where we are screening and quantifying the social impact as well as the shariah impact, the maqasid, the objectives of shariah, both measured in a quantitative way and also powered with a little bit of AI to make it smarter as it gets more data. So that's one thing we're working on. There's a lot more over time that we will do, but step by step, inshallah. Right now, we have just rolled out a new non-blockchain crowdfunding platform, brand new system in Indonesia, and we could be rolling out at the global level, inshallah, early next year.
Okay, that's good to hear also that you guys are up to something interesting. Okay,
there's a lot more, but next time.
You're not sure. Okay.
I can share, but yeah, there's a lot.
Okay, since we did the second question already, we can go to the third one. How can we better leverage on equity crowdfunding for medium to long-term investments?
Sure. I think there's two things I want to highlight. First is in general. I mean, we as a platform, we are not also considered an investment advisor. Our role is not to advise. Our role is to receive from the public, do screening, do checks, do background checks, do commercial screening, do our own due diligence at our own standards, and then put it on the platform, right? So then you come and choose. So which ones you like, you can invest in. And the basic principle of any kind of investment, especially this kind of direct investment, especially if you're talking about equity in startups, is to diversify, right? You do a bit of reading up, and you'll see that for most VC type or startup type investments, the companies tend to fail quite a lot. So out of 10 companies, maybe 6, 7 may fail, right? 2 or 3 may do not bad, and 1 or 2 may do very well. And the 1 and 2 is the one that VCs are looking for, right? That's why they sort of spread their money around. So same thing, although you may not have as much funds as the VC, but through equity crowdfunding, for us in Malaysia, the minimum is 3,000 ringgit typically, sometimes 5,000 ringgit or $1,000, right? With $1,000 Singapore dollars, you can get some share in a company. So if you have $10,000, you can get $1,000 worth of shares in 10 companies over time. And inshallah, from there, there'll be a few that make it really big, and that will give you your returns, right? So that's on one side, diversifying your investments. Same as Indonesia, although Indonesia is more short-term, right? You still should look at how you can spread out your capital. And the second thing is, I feel, especially today, what we realize, a lot of investors tell us, they invest in what they like and what they want to support. It's not, making money is part of it, of course, right? That you're investing, you're not doing charity. But at the same time, you want to invest in something that makes a difference or that resonates with you, that you really like, right? And we have a lot of that, this kind of companies and projects that people are attracted to. Some people are attracted to the business, not necessarily the impact, right? Whatever tickles your fancy or attracts you, right, on our platforms, we will share with you whatever comes up, and do check out the platform every once in a while to see whether there's anything suitable. Yeah,
I see. So we should invest in what we like, and also after seeing the risk analysis.
I mean, taking a step back, maybe it sounds a bit idealistic, but from the Islamic lens, right, Islamic worldview, your money, especially us in Singapore with significantly more money than the rest of the world, right? We may not feel so rich, but we do have more money than a lot of other countries, alhamdulillah. So that's an amanah, that's a trust given to us. Right? How we're going to spend this money is a responsibility we need to think about, right? So it's not just making money, but making money in things that you feel like are good, right? Or making money in things that you like, of course. Yeah.
Yes, and I think this will make the people who put their money in the new earth really think whether their money should go to the new virtual earth. Okay. Well, anyway, let's proceed to the next question. I think we answered this. And I think you addressed a bit of how do we choose the projects over the growth, and maybe we can just skip that and go to the impact of the delays on the projects. Like you mentioned that some of the projects actually experience delays. So what are the impacts of these projects campaigns?
Sure. I think these are very important questions. Thank you to whoever's asking it. But maybe if you don't mind, just the earlier question, have something to share on the 3 to 5 years. So for crowdfunding in Malaysia, we can raise funds up to 20 million per company. So if you're talking about startups or fast growth companies, we have very, very early idea stage pre-revenue companies, and we have quite big companies with good profits already. Typically, as an equity holder, the VCs, the early stage VCs tend to make more money, but it's also riskier, right? So it's the same thing, like high risk, high returns potentially, inshallah. Yeah. All right. Anyway, back to the delay. So, are those investments still attractive? What's the impact? So delays basically will push back the timeline. Sometimes the timelines are clear. Sometimes the timelines are not so clear yet, and only at a certain point will get clear. So for Ethis, our role representing the investors as a platform, not as the investor and not as the investee, right? We both sides are our client, right? Our job is to facilitate and match. So what we do is we have our own internal SOPs for restructuring and so on. In Indonesia also, a lot of these things are regulated and set in place by the regulators. Indonesian regulators are very, very detailed, I would say, from a positive perspective, because there's so many platforms that are in Indonesia, right? Some really big ones, and a lot of scam ones as well. So the regulators have their work cut out for them, and they are very, very strict. Yeah. So what we do is we have restructuring, right? Because we also understand the market, is in a sense easier for us to negotiate. Because if you as an investor from Singapore are negotiating with them, some things that they share with you, you won't have context, right? But for us, because we do have a lot of such deals, we know what's happening in the market to some extent, and we negotiate and discuss together with our lawyers. So once there's a delay, there's either a restructuring or just a temporary delay. Right? They say okay, timeline is 6 months. Typically, we always put in a 1 or 2 month buffer, and now they're saying there's going to be a 3-month delay because my stock from Japan has not come, and they say it will take 3 months because of this COVID issue, for example, or whatever other issue. So then we will inform investors there's a potential 3-month delay, and we are knowing about it from now. So instead of November, you're going to get the money potentially in February, right? Sometimes it's not clear. There's a delay. They're not sure when it's going to work out. They're not sure when this bottleneck or this issue will be solved, right? So for us, in that kind of situation, we have our SOP to give warning letters and so on. Worst case scenario, it will go legal, right? So delays can fall into default, and then we have to activate our recovery process, right? So in any kind of lending-based investment or term-based investment, there will always be defaults and delays, right? It's a matter of whether you as an investor understand the risk or can take on that risk. Yeah, that's why diversification is quite important. Yeah. So for the SME project so far, there have been no outright defaults, but there have been delays. And for the property projects, as I shared earlier, there were some delays as well. So these are things that you have to bear in mind. The timeline is a target. The business wants to reach the target as much as you do, but the real world may come and the world may change certain things. But by and large, most of them are on track so far. Yeah.
That's good to know that the projects are on track so far. And okay, proceeding to the next question, I think we have a question about communication. So how do you see a better follow-up of your clients' investments and communication?
Sure. I think this is also a very important question, and we are always trying to figure out how best to do this. And over time, we've tried many different ways. One challenge is when you invest in a country like Indonesia, most of these business owners may not be so fluent in English. We did try a few times to directly allow or facilitate communication through our platform and so on, but it didn't work out well because talking to investors is not something that everybody understands how to do, and especially if language is a challenge, right? So what we do right now is we just simplify as much as we can the process to collect data. We have our local app, so they just fill in the specific questions and fields, right? Then our team will collect the data, process the data. Our system will then push it out, and we will do the translation and curation to English on behalf of the project owner and send it to you, to the investors. Yeah. In the future, we feel that there is a need for more open discussion, and we're exploring to have more social communication channels within specific projects or specific groups of people and so on. So this is something that we're looking at in our upcoming platform, inshallah, because they will have a much wider scope and a wider base, inshallah. Yeah.
Okay, good. Okay, moving on to the next question. I think we have someone from Kenya interested to invest in your platform. So how to send money to invest in Ethis when you are in Kenya?
All right. I think the reality is today, for any global investment, unless you are using maybe some form of crypto, it's not frictionless. It's actually full of friction today. International transfers and payments, especially for investment, it's not so straightforward. So what I mean by that is whether you're in Kenya or you're in Saudi, like Saudi is one of our fastest growing investor markets. And the biggest growth has been from Saudi and UK since the COVID started. So from Saudi, it's not easy as well. So sometimes you either do internet banking or you have to do it through TransferWise or this kind of online remittance services. Yeah, right now from anywhere in the world, when you're investing in our projects in Indonesia, you have to do a transfer using one of these third-party services. You cannot yet transfer directly from our platform because right now there's no such global infrastructure anywhere. The best that the market has is actually in the UK, in Europe, because there's a few very good souped up wallets that allow this kind of thing, but it's only within Europe, So whether it's from Kenya or Singapore, you have to do a transfer. You can do the transfer through remittance companies online or from your bank to the bank account in Indonesia.
Okay. You mentioned something about possibility of doing this in crypto. Would you like to explain a bit on that?
Sure. I think there's two steps. One step is for us to have something like a global wallet, meaning when you sign up for Ethis, right, that the transfer may have some friction, will take some time, right, depending on your country and your bank's requirements and all that. So when inshallah at some point in the near future, we'll have a wallet, so you can put your money in that wallet. The challenge is in most countries, the limit or threshold for the wallet is quite low for those kind of retail normal user wallets, right? You cannot put like $100,000 there in your wallet, right? At the same time, most of the regulators require a custodian to collect the money. In Malaysia, we have a third-party custodian company, a trustee company called Amanah Raya Trustees. Your money goes to them, doesn't come to us, right? In Indonesia, it goes into what is called a virtual account, right? So different countries are different. So for now, the wallet has to come first. Now for crypto, what could happen, and I'm just being very candid, what we're looking into is to have our own internal tokens. It's the same like a wallet, but you're converting your money to an internal token, and that token can then be used as an internal currency kind of thing between the Ethis platforms for payouts. When you get your payout, you can transfer some of your Ethis tokens, for example, to sedekah. Every time you make money, you give 20% sedekah, for example, right? So these are things that we are looking into, we have been looking into. And sometimes it's a matter of timing and regulations when it's visible. Yeah.
Oh, that's really good to hear. I always get this like very bright smile when I hear very futuristic, potential features that you just blurt out. Okay, let's go to the next question. What is the range of returns for equity crowdfunding and P2P crowdfunding? I think we did mention a bit, but maybe you can just reiterate.
Sure. I think for ACF, roughly you can divide the kind of campaigns we have into 2 or 3 types, right? So 2 types from a commercial perspective. One is companies that have have a possibility of fast growth in terms of value. So you're buying a share in the company, expecting the company to become more valuable in a few years' time, and then have an exit when the value is higher. You sell your shares to the incoming investor or an IPO, or if they sell the company to another party or whatever, right? So one is capital appreciation-based companies. That's more of the angel investment, VC investment in technology companies, fast growth companies. So for that, it really varies. Most of the time, typically, right, the companies can fail, right? Startups do fail. If that happens, you don't have any returns. You don't have your money back even sometimes. But if the company grows very fast, then it can be 5 times, 10 times, 100 times sometimes, because that's how startups work, right? For Ethis, some of our investors who invested in our company early on, I was just doing some calculations, right? Throughout our journey, we did need some injection here and there, although we've never raised very large funds. But alhamdulillah, over time, a number of our friends and supporters have invested in us. So they have made 5 times, 10 times. I think one of them came in at a point where we were in a very bad state, and we're just calculating he made 30 times as of today, if you were to sell his share. And there are people who will be willing to buy his Ethis share. So it's the same thing, right? When you invest in a company, it can be 10 times, 30 times, 50 times. It depends, yeah? Or it can be 0. Yeah. Now for P2P, so that's the first time of ECF company. The other one are income generating companies that have cash flow, that have profits and give dividends. So here we will also, sometimes it's a combination of the two, right? The company is fast growth and making money. So here's where you can look at the deal and see whether there are projected dividends to be shared with you. So every year you can get some dividends, and hopefully over time, as the company gives more dividends and grows bigger, you can also sell your share at a future point in time, right? So dividends typically is 15%, 12% per annum projected, that kind of range. For P2P crowdfunding, they are typically short-term SME projects. Annualized range, I think average realized profits for our investors ranges from, because depending on which project you invest in, depending when you invested, we have counted or calculated with some of the investors to see how you're doing. So it's between 14, sometimes on the lower end, 12 or 10, but also 20 and 20 plus, right? If you look at our deals, it's roughly on an annualized deal calculation is about 16 to 18%. How come some people can get 20%? Is because they compound it. 3 months, money comes in and out, goes to another one. So your profit is reinvested as capital, and then it adds up, right? So then it can become 20%. But typically, I would say a range of 10 and 20% would be something that you can look at for P2P.
Okay, I think we are just on time to address the last question. Okay, maybe we have 2 minutes to address the last question and wrap everything up. So if I may, I would like to direct this question again. So what happens if the funding goal is not achieved? Does this severely affect the returns of the project?
Sure. So I'll answer this quickly, but I want to just touch on global sedekah also, if you don't mind.
Please.
I didn't have time to talk much about that. Everybody here wants to invest. Not complaining, alhamdulillah. But please be aware of the risk before you invest. Now, if the funding goal is not achieved in Malaysia, there's a minimum threshold. You have to reach it. If not, everybody will be refunded. There's the regulatory requirement, right? In Indonesia also, it's similar. However, in Indonesia, sometimes if the project can continue, sometimes what happens is while we are funding it, they find another source of money. They tell us, okay, it's funded from another source. You can stop your fundraising. So in that kind of situation, the project will still proceed. But in general, if the funding goal is not achieved, typically you get a refund. Okay, so maybe,
Okay, please. I think you can go ahead with the global sedekah.
I want to pitch about global sedekah a bit because it's something that's really, really important for us. Now, in Islam, everybody knows, right, that charity, you can never go wrong. You can never get less when you give to charity. You always get more in some way or form at some point in time in this world or the next world, inshallah. So for global sedekah, what we try to do is we bring curated projects and also programs. Just check it out. You can, if you are interested, just to help people in need. We have campaigns from Syria, Malaysia, everywhere, Indonesia. You can support and help people who need your help. Then there are also more interesting ones, more unique ones, like programs that support the environment, programs that support women, for example, programs that support small micro entrepreneurs. We even have a new, quite in the background, we have one that's moving very nicely, which is called Card Hasan. In Islamic Finance, this is actually the only kind of lending allowed. You can only lend money with the intention that you don't get anything back in return, and you only get your capital if the person can afford it. That's a Card Hasan, right? So it's a charitable, benevolent loan, and the person pays you back if he can. No profits, right? That's Card Hasan. Why we like this is because it's so powerful. Imagine your sedekah, instead of one time being given, and sometimes that's needed, right? Somebody just needs to eat. So fine, we give the money, inshallah. We support that person's life. But sometimes you also want your money to create more impact and recycle. So that's the Global Sedekah Card Hasan program that we have. So check out our platform. We have very interesting user behavior. A lot of people every Friday will donate, right? Some people ad hoc, they donate quite often 2-3 months a week, 2-3 times a week. Some people, when something good happens to them, they give. Some people, when they get some risky, they give, So you can do wakaf online, right? You can do wakaf online, you can pay zakat online. So inshallah, check it out. That's my last pitch for all of you. Because if you really want to understand crowdfunding, you have to get involved, right? And maybe investment is a tougher decision to make, right? You need to think about it before you decide to invest, right? But for charity, anybody can invest anytime. Or donate, sorry, not invest, can donate anytime. So check it out, try out the process. It's very easy. And let us know if you have any feedback, room for improvement, inshallah.
Yes, I think I can also call it investment in the hereafter. Yeah, I do apologize for exceeding the time a bit, but I think we can wrap this up. Maybe one of the admin can post the Global Sedekah website down in the chat, and then the rest can check it out. So thank you so much, brother Umar. Oh yeah, there also the sticker. I believe that you have much more to share, and I think if those who still have their questions, you can head down to Ethis, and I think they have some chat features where you can ask further questions regarding investment, and also check out the Global Sedekah website. And beside that, look out for the IF at SG space for the next episode of More Than Just Money, a series that you can ask anything about Islamic finance related. And so once again, thank you to all the participants, and see you again. Good night and stay safe. Assalamualaikum.
Waalaikumsalam.